September 20th, 2025, Daily Bread. Passage, 1 Chronicles chapter 27, verse 1 to verse 34. Key verse 17. Title, Army Divisions. This is the list of the Israelites' heads of families, commanders of thousands, and commanders of hundreds, and their officers, who served the king in all that concerned the army, divisions that were on duty, month by month throughout the year. Each division consisted of 24,000 men. In charge of the first division for the first month was Jashobeam, son of Zabdiel. There were 24,000 men in his division. He was a descendant of Perez, and chief of all the army officers for the first month. In charge of the division for the second month was Dodai the Ahawite. Mikloth was the leader of his division. There were 24,000 men in his division. The third army commander for the third month was Benaiah, son of Jehoiada the priest. He was chief, and there were 24,000 men in his division. This was the Benaiah, who was a mighty warrior among the 30, and was over the 30. His son, Ammizabad, was in charge of his division. The fourth, for the fourth month, was Asahel, the brother of Joab. His son Zebadiah was his successor. There were 24,000 men in his division. The fifth, for the fifth month, was the commander Shamhuth, the Izrahite. There were 24,000 men in his division. The sixth, for the sixth month, was Ira the son of Ikesh, the Tekoite. There were 24,000 men in his division. The seventh, for the seventh month, was Helez the Pelonite, an Ephraimite. There were 24,000 men in his division. The eighth, for the eighth month, was Sibbekai the Hushathite, a Zerahite. There were 24,000 men in his division. The ninth, for the ninth month, was Abiezer the Anathothite, a Benjamite. There were 24,000 men in his division. The tenth, for the 10th month, was Maharai the Netophathite, a Zerahite. There were 24,000 men in his division. The 11th, for the 11th month, was Benaiah the Pirathonite, an Ephraimite. There were 24,000 men in his division. The 12th, for the 12th month, was Heldai the Netophathite, from the family of Othniel. There were 24,000 men in his division. The leaders of the tribes of Israel: over the Reubenites, Eleazar son of Zichri; over the Simeonites, Shephatiah son of Maacah; over Levi, Hashabiah son of Kemuel; over Aaron, Zadok; over Judah, Elihu, a brother of David; over Issachar, Omri son of Michael; over Zebulun, Ishmael son of Obadiah; over Naphtali, Jeremoth son of Azriel; over the Ephraimites, Hoshea son of Azaziah; over half the tribe of Manasseh, Joel son of Pedaiah; over the half-tribe of Manasseh in Gilead, Iddo son of Zechariah; over Benjamin, Jaasiel son of Abner; over Dan, Azarel son of Jeroham. These were the leaders of the tribes of Israel. David did not take the number of the men 20 years old, or less, because the Lord had promised to make Israel as numerous as the stars in the sky. Joab, son of Zeruiah, began to count the men, but did not finish. God's wrath came on Israel on account of this numbering, and the number was not entered in the book of the annals of King David. Asmaveth, son of Adiel, was in charge of the royal storehouses. Jonathan, son of Uzziah, was in charge of the storehouses in the outlying districts, in the towns, the villages, and the watchtowers. Ezri, son of Calub, was in charge of the workers who farmed the land. Shimei, the Ramathite, was in charge of the vineyards. Zabdi the Shipmite was in charge of the produce of the vineyards for the wine vats. Belhanan the Gederite was in charge of the olive and sycamore fig trees in the western foothills, Joash was in charge of the supplies of olive oil. Shitrai, the Sharonite, was in charge of the herds, grazing in Sharon. Shaphat son of Adlai was in charge of the herds in the valleys. Obil the Ishmaelite was in charge of the camels. Jehariah the Meronothite was in charge of the donkeys. Jaziz the Hagrit was in charge of the flocks. All these were the officials in charge of King David's property. Jonathan, David's uncle, was a counselor, a man of insight and a scribe. Jehiel son of Hakmoni took care of the king's sons. Ahithophel was the king's counselor. Hushai the Archite was the king's confidant. Ahithophel was succeeded by Jehoiada son of Benaiah and by Abiathar. Joab was the commander of the royal army. Daily Bread Message. This section describes the army division of Israel. There was a total of 12 divisions serving their duty, month by month, taking turns. Each division of the army had 24,000 men serve. It appears that they were volunteer militia, unpaid by the government. This shows their willingness to serve God. Probably for the rest of the 11 months, they went back to their jobs such as farming or tending flocks. This shows how all of Israel served God. The leaders of each tribe were mentioned as well. Reubenites, Simeonites, and all the 12 tribes and their leaders were mentioned. Interestingly, Aaron's tribe has its own leader. Truly, the priests were set apart as their own. Although they belonged to the tribe of Levi, they had their own leader. This shows how important the priest is in God's sight. Thank you, Jesus, for being our high priest, that we may approach God's throne competently. This section also mentions overseers who help the king run the government. There were those in charge of the storehouse, workers, and vineyards. The commander of the army and counselors to the king were all mentioned. They all came together to serve the country of Israel, so the name of God may be glorified. Prayer. Lord, whatever we do, may we do it for your glory. One word, glorify the name of God.